From Under Pressure, an album that retells his life story, to No Pressure, an album that contains every drop of blood, sweat, and tear that Logic, the rapper, has ever put into his career, Logic has cultivated a very loyal fanbase. In doing so, he's created two separate universes that take place within his albums and a spin-off mixtape that are filled with Easter eggs, pop culture, and nerd culture references. With songs such as Perfect, which samples Capcom's Street Fighter,
shout out Capcom,
to making an ad-lib that mentions him beating Uncharted 4 in his song Super Mario World, Logic is no stranger to video game culture. In fact, he appeared as a cameo within Naughty Dog's The Last of Us 2 and mentioned this on a song called These Days.
I don't play games, I star in them. That's where the Naughty Dog, that's where the Last of Us. Bobby boy, slow it down, rapping too fast for us. I'ma keep going, I'm knowing I'm passing the torch to the boy not going.
This bitch is fucked up.
He was so inspired by Quentin Tarantino, notably mentioning his love for Tarantino movies in his song Metropolis on his first album Under Pressure, that he gave himself the nickname Bobby Tarantino. And yes, as a DC fan, I know that Metropolis is a nod to DC Comics. For what it's worth though, he's only ever used Bobby Tarantino for two commercial mixtapes, Bobby Tarantino 1 and Bobby Tarantino 2, which is more so him having fun and making songs that aim more to the fans that tend to like braggadocious rap or rap that's mainly about flexing. With a message of peace, love, and positivity to all of his inspirations that allowed him to build all of this is how nerd and pop culture influenced Logic's The Incredible True Story. When we first listened to Logic's debut album, Under Pressure, we're introduced to Thalia, an AI program. Thalia, who's a homage to A Tribe Called Quest's Midnight Marauders, greets us after the song intro is completed and states, "Hello, welcome to the Under Pressure program. My name is Thalia. I will be here to assist you with the information about the album and its creation." Thalia will become a reoccurring person within this video, but this is where we first meet her. Throughout Under Pressure, she ends up telling us various fun facts regarding Logic, such as where Under Pressure was recorded, facts about his closer friends, how long it took to record Under Pressure, and more. Unfortunately, one of the first opportunities that Logic would have been able to truly showcase his love for nerd culture ended up never happening. The song Buried Alive was supposed to get a music video that was gonna be fully CGI and take place illustrating Logic on a moving train as he travels through multiple planets. The planets would have ended up showcasing Logic's emotions during his creative process. At least, that's how he describes it in the MTV behind the scenes of unreleased Buried Alive music video. Logic even stated how excited he was to do this music video because he would have previously been afraid to do something like that, which makes it even more unfortunate that we never got to see that vision. Recently, in one of his Twitch streams, he finally told his viewers what happened to the highly anticipated music video. I'll let Logic himself tell you what happened.
What happened to the Buried Alive music video? If I have to fucking say this for the millionth time, bro, I scrapped it because it sucked. The person who did it fucked it up, so I didn't put it out. I've said that for like 9 years, bro. Let it go.
Under Pressure might not have a ton of nerd culture or pop culture references, but it's still one of the best cohesive Logic albums and will always be up there as a top 3 Logic album. The Incredible True Story and Transformation of the Man Who Saved the World, otherwise known as The Incredible True Story, is the album that allowed Logic to finally dive deep into the nerd culture or pop culture influences that he consistently wears on his sleeve, so to speak. Starring Steve Blum as Quentin Thomas, the captain and pilot of the Aquarius 3, Kevin Randolph as William Kai, the first man in charge of infantry on the Aquarius 3, and Thalia, we're taken on an adventure that takes place within space. Before I dive deeper into the album, here's a couple of fun facts. After pitching The Incredible True Story to Steve Blum, all of the dialogue for Thomas, Kai, and Thalia was written by Logic in one night. The studio that they were recording the dialogue in also happened to be the same studio where anime such as Akira and Metropolis were recorded as well.
No, this is where all your favorite shows were made. We recorded Akira right here. He goes, no, you didn't. He's got this gigantic sound crew and all these lights.
On top of this, Interstellar was a massive influence on this album and created a massive interest in one of the core themes of The Incredible True Story. First announced and teased on September 8th, 2015, Logic released a 2-minute trailer for The Incredible True Story. The Incredible True Story, a sophomore album and motion picture sci-fi epic from Logic, is how they described this album in its announcement trailer, and it lived up to every single bit of that. Starring the aforementioned characters, The Incredible True Story dives deep into one of Logic's favorite topics at the time of this album's creation: humanity. The entirety of the story centers itself around the concept of humanity, whether it's Earth's population rapidly dwindling due to a chemical poisoning the genetically engineered meat, which was teased in Logic's Young Jesus music video, the search for another planet similar to Earth so the lasting amount of Earth's population can continue to live, or the lack of lucidity amongst Earth's lasting population. It all comes back to humanity. The everyday life for the people who live in Babel Space Station, which was built after Earth's population had to live together near the Great Lakes in a super city, as Logic calls it, given the name Babel because of a nuclear war, is to find a planet they would end up calling Paradise. The people left are fighting for the sake of life. They got there because of awful choices that led to these events, and it all comes together as Thomas and Kai hope for the best outcome during their journey to paradise. By the way, all of these details are a part of the outside backstory surrounding this album and aren't necessarily spoken about throughout Thomas and Kai's journey. One of the biggest reveals when it comes to The Incredible True Story is that we're not the ones listening to Logic's first album, Under Pressure. After Contact, the grand introductory song of the album, finishes, a skit starts where Thomas and Kai interact with each other. Thomas mentions that he was listening to oldies like Logic, and he was listening to his first album, Under Pressure. This storyline takes place years after Under Pressure dropped, and to be even more specific, the journey actually takes place in the year 2115. Therefore, Logic isn't even alive during this story, which is what makes his music oldie music. Building even further upon Under Pressure, we find out that Thalia is actually an AI program on the spaceship, the Aquarius 3. After we're introduced to the beginning of this story, Fade Away is the first song that plays, and on an episode of Logic's series, Just Another Day, he described how Fade Away ended up coming into fruition. Logic watched the movie Interstellar, which ended up inspiring the entire storyline for The Incredible True Story, and a specific set of lyrics for Fade Away.
In a spaceship, I'm in another system, so futuristic on another mission, but back on Earth, everybody bitching. So to me, it's like I was in another world, I was like humanity and all this.
Fade Away also dives deeper into the lore of Thalia, which turns out Thalia was not only upgraded before their journey, but she's unisex and can mimic the voice of anyone in history based off a collection of data. This upgrade ends up becoming a big source of fan theories regarding one of Logic's later albums, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. However, as it preludes into the track Upgrade, Logic mentions having a cure on the wall during the song. In an interview with PlayStation and on the website Genius, he actually spoke about how he'd literally project every film or anime that was an inspiration for the album onto a gigantic wall as he'd make beats. The same influences that laid the groundwork for The Incredible True Story space exploration theme continue to show with scenes such as White People. In this case, White People mainly showcases that Thomas and Kai aren't alone in space even though they expected to be alone. With the journey still ongoing, they happen to unintentionally be approaching another ship. As they get closer, they end up finding a piece of audio that was embedded in that same ship's distress signal. Turns out, every crewmate on that ship has been dead since 2093. We know this thanks to the captain of the ship, Christopher Smith, leaves a warning to not come knocking. Technically, we still don't know why because we never find out what actually happened to that ship. Coincidentally though, the ship's name is the Aquarius 1. As Thomas and Kai continue their journey, we don't get to revisit the core topic of humanity until a track titled Intermission later on within the album. Intermission continues to build the space exploration theme of The Incredible True Story while managing to build upon the core topic of humanity as well. In the first verse, Logic raps a verse that's relatable for nearly every listener. The entirety of that verse speaks about wanting to go back in time and relive key moments of our life with a better understanding because of our growth as a person, and Logic reiterating how beautiful life is. The line, "I know deep in my heart everyone is created equal," is not only something that Logic fully believes and preaches, but he ends up heavily building upon this line with the follow-up album, Everybody. In the second verse, Logic does exactly what he spoke about in the first verse. He reminisces about life before fame. Of course, in typical Logic fashion, he mentions Quentin Tarantino again, but he heavily showcases his appreciation for life in general, notably mentioning his emotions on his 25th birthday. Being the storyteller that Logic is, he manages to bring back the topic of paradise with the small skit at the end of intermission. Thanks to Genius, we know where this exact skit is from. Logic told Chris Doran from the Frontrunners to go in the booth and talk to his son about a Star Wars convention, and he just chopped the audio up to make it sound like his son was from the future and was talking about the planet Paradise. Despite being about breaking away from the toxic hip-hop culture and hip-hop fans that want Logic to rap a certain way, City of Stars helps paint a picture for what Paradise can actually look like. The interlude of the song, "In the City of Stars, where there's flying cars, a brand new home for everyone, and even life on Mars," helps describe Paradise if Thomas and Kai's journey leads to a positive outcome. One could argue that City of Stars also correlates back to Thomas and Kai's journey as well, with lines such as "I doubt you even know why I left you behind," and "No, I never thought I could live my life without you. All you ever seem to do is scream and make it about you." It's fairly easy to think about the backstory of the incredible true story while listening to this song. Earth's lasting population leaving because of the nuclear war and genetically modified meat and all those terrible decisions that led to the Earth reacting negatively, which forced them to make Babel Space Station, and not knowing if leaving to Babel Space Station would ever lead to a successful outcome, such as finding a planet similar to Earth like Paradise. With a picture of Paradise already being painted in City of Stars, we're automatically given a counter perspective in the follow-up scene, Babel. In Babel, Thomas speaks about his worries regarding Paradise as a planet and the potential damage that'll be done. He even explicitly states, "What if we got there and it's exactly as the data predicted? Beautiful, lush. Then we destroy it just like we did Earth. There's only 5 million human beings left in the universe." I mean, it's weird to think about the fact that in 2065, the last footprint was left on Earth before ascending to Babel. After he says that, Kai asks Thomas what his point is, and he responds saying, "The point is, 30 ships have traveled in deep space, looking for a planet like this. Damn near all of them returned home without any luck. Some of them didn't return at all. I guess my fear isn't that we won't find paradise, it's that we'll create purgatory." This all comes back to Logic's obsession with humanity and us as people not learning from our mistakes because we don't appreciate or understand what we have now in the moment. This is the entire message of the incredible true story. Even with the track titled Paradise, the entirety of the track is aimed towards the people who Logic specifically envisioned living on the planet Paradise. In his interview with Hard Knock TV, Logic states the following regarding the type of people on Paradise. Paradise is a world for people, who love all music, generally positive. Oh, bring on debates as long as you respect each other. You're invited to this planet. This brings us to the scene that ties the entire message of the incredible true story together, lucidity. Through Thomas, Logic reminds us how much we take things for granted on a daily basis. Thomas states, "Back then, people had dreams and achieved them in a state of total consciousness. Shit we took for granted was obvious. Water, food supply. It's insane to think everyday life for everyone in Babel is the quest for paradise. I don't know, I guess that's what I'm looking for." The conclusion of this album ends with the title track, The Incredible True Story, where Logic spends time talking to his fans and letting us know that everything he does is for us. At the same time, he encourages people to chase their dreams. After his verses are over, a very beautiful sample of Alan Watts' speech, "What if money was no object?" plays, emphasizing the exact point Logic was just rapping about, chasing your dreams and appreciating life. Thomas and Kai finally make their journey to paradise, and we hear a final conversation between them as Thalia tells them the status of their journey as they land. Right before they land on Paradise, Thomas and Kai ironically debate about what Tarantino film is Logic's favorite. The track ends with the spaceship opening and hearing a bunch of sounds all at the same time, to which Thalia answers Thomas's question, "What's that sound?" with one word: life. With all the influences that helped create this album, The Incredible True Story truly is a cinematic sci-fi epic. Logic's obsession with humanity helps remind every listener how much we should be appreciating everything we have now in this very moment. It may seem pretty surface level, but with each song having its own meaning and somehow building upon one another to flesh out this beautiful storyline of Thomas, Kai, and Thalia's journey to paradise, it helped create one of my favorite albums ever made. And by the way, there's something I forgot to say earlier on in this video, but I'll let Kai handle that.
Man, bitches love the Rubik's Cube.
If you enjoyed this video and want me to do a video about Logic's follow-up album, Everybody, hit that like button. If you really enjoyed this video, hit that sub button. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, write a comment down below. Don't forget to keep it real with peace, love, and positivity.